To the Neighbourhood Plan meeting this afternoon, Monday the 14th of September. We go straight on to item 1, which is the apologies for absence, which I believe there were 3 at the last count, Jodie?
Yeah, 3. Ian Clark, Sarah Langton and Jim Monroe.
Okay. Is there anybody else missing?
Michelle, but she might be working.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Maybe you need that.
And Glenn doesn't normally make it.
Actually.
Okay, item 2, declaration of interest. Does anybody have any interest of any items on the agenda this afternoon?
No.
There's an echo there. Was that Jim? Oh, was that
Don.
Okay, so I see nobody.
Don.
What are you laughing for, Patrick? Item 3, public participation. We have Julian Brooks from the Henley Society is going to speak, but we'll let him speak on item 8, the government planning guidance. That's okay with everybody? Yeah, okay, thank you. Item 4, to agree the notes of the meeting of the 3rd of August 2020. David Whitehead, you had an item which you wanted to bring up.
Well, yes, under 17, the 4th paragraph, which is on page 2,
Yeah.
you're quoting the houses proposed for Henley,
Yeah.
15%, but it doesn't say 15% of what. I think for clarity and for people reading this without the background, it should say 15% of the dwellings in the 2011 census.
Which was a 1285. Because I spoke to Ricardo the other day, or he phoned me up, and now what they're saying is it's 15% on top of the 1285. Well, actually, and that should be minimum 15%. This comes from the examination, or that's the proposal from the examination by the chap Bohr. So,
well, I'm just trying to get some clarity into the figures.
Yeah. Well, okay, that's fine. But the thing is, all we're here to do at the moment is to accept if that's a true record of what was said at the meeting. And the question is that a true record that was said at the meeting?
This is the computer.
Yeah.
That's my question. If that's what I said at the meeting, these minutes are then a true document of what was said. We can go on to the figures at a later stage when we go through the agenda.
Okay.
Is that okay?
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. Thanks a lot, David. So if I can take those as read, then the notes from.
And I was at the meeting.
Oh yeah, sorry. Yeah, we've got you. Yeah, I've got that down, Don. Sorry, we missed you off.
Yeah. Out of sight, out of mind.
That's probably because we couldn't see you again.
Yeah, it's good, isn't it?
Okay. So agree the minutes of the or the notes from the 3rd of August. Can we all agree with those, please?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you for that. Item 5, I call on Jodie just to receive an update of any progress from the last meeting. Jodie.
Thank you. So locality have now approved for AECOM to assess the additional sites that have been submitted to us, and they're working through that at the moment. There has been some delay with that because of locality holding up a little bit, but that's now with AECOM to do that site assessment. They'll be producing an addendum to that site assessment report, and I'll bring that back to the group for comment. In terms of other things going on, you'll be aware of the developer presentations. I explained that last time, and they'll be going ahead on the 28th, 29th of September and the 1st of October. We've now got confirmation from all the developers, and they've said that it's fine to go ahead. We will be advertising those presentations in the Henley Standard this week and circulating it as widely as possible. And the other thing I was just going to update you on is in terms of the SODC local plan. The council have now received the inspector's preliminary findings on the local plan, and they've been sent a letter which you can see is available on the examination website. These have include the preliminary conclusions on the key matters that arose through examination. The inspector is not inviting comments on these findings, but instead there'll be an opportunity in the autumn for the public to comment on the main modifications, and we can discuss that at a future committee. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, if I just note on the chap Bohr's paper that he put forward on item 33, you've got market towns, which goes on to item 34. And David, it mentions about the 15% growth to the 2011 existing housing stock.
Yeah.
It goes on there, so it gives the information on there. I think what we'll do, because it's always been conflicting, all these percentages, you know, what is what exactly. I think what we need to, or what I will do, I'll get someone from SODC to put it in writing exactly what the figures are, and then yeah, we will have that. I think we've always had. I've given information on telephone calls, and Kath and probably Jodie the same. We've had emails, but let's get a proper letter from them exactly where we stand, and I'll do that over the next few days. Sorry.
I was going to say, do you want me to add to the discussion now, or leave it until my report later?
No, do on your report, David. That'd be good. Yeah. Are you still updating your? Well, we'll do it on your report.
Yeah.
That'd be fine. Okay. Right. Thanks for that, Jodie. Item 6. This is updates from the working groups. We can skip through these fairly quickly. The first one is the schools, colleges, and doctors, surgeries, utilities, etc. Does anybody want to make a quote on that, Rebecca or Michelle? Michelle?
Sorry, I'm late. I haven't gone out with any questionnaires for this because I just don't think the timing is right because of COVID. I mean, schools have just reopened and having to put new measures in place. As with the doctor's surgeries, they're going to be up against it as well. So I don't think it's the right time. So I'm just making a pause on this one.
Okay, that's fine. Yeah. Okay. Rebecca, nothing from you? I did see you before. Rebecca was there before, wasn't she?
Yes, she still is.
Oh, there you go. I see you. Yeah. Have you got any comments for that, Rebecca?
No, nothing from me. Nothing to add.
Okay, thank you. The next one was item little 2, libraries, community halls, sports and leisure facilities. Joan?
I've been updating that, and I'm just waiting something from the leisure centre, which obviously has only just reopened, and I've just had holding emails from them. But it's pretty well ready to go whenever once I get that.
Yeah, okay. Thank you. Small 3 was transport. That's Patrick, Don, Jeff, and Kester and Jackie.
So, yeah, as
Patrick.
you've just received an email, or some of you have, with my first attempt at marrying up policies. I've extracted the Knightsbridge, the Henley policies, and I've got the evidence base, which is basically the local plan with Bohr's, Freudian slip there, Bohr's comments that South Oxfordshire have got to incorporate. So it means that we've got a base that we can start to work on. The challenge is going to be identifying policies and then cross-referring to the support from the SODC documents. I would say that every time I read it, the Knightsbridge neighbourhood plan just stands out as exceptional.
We've been saying that for 18 months.
I know. I'm still surprised by it.
Okay, well, thanks a lot. Anybody else wish to speak on that? No, I can't see anybody. Item 4, the car parks. It's not relevant for the neighbourhood plan, but just to say the entrance to the car park is meant to be opening tomorrow, this end of Kings Road. Unfortunately, SODC has got a wee bit behind on this. It should have opened a week ago. And I've also been told that the 20p increase on the car park will start on or before the 1st of December. But the free hour probably won't do until it's advertised better. But then again, if all that was to fall in place, there's no reason why the free hour couldn't take place before the 1st of December as well. But that's in the hands of officers at SODC, and I kind of push them every second or third day for that. But so it's not really relevant for the neighbourhood plan, more for residents of the town. Item 5, new housing permitted development rights since March 2007. David.
Right. Well, let's start off with that figure of 1285, which is 15% of the housing stock in 211.
Yeah.
So I have a letter here from Ricardo Rios, and he says that the ones they're taking into account to set against that number are completions as of the 31st of March 2018,
yeah,
and commitments as of 30th of September 2018. So he comes up then with a figure of 1129, leaving an outstanding requirement of 156, which is a figure you may remember.
Yeah.
Now, in the latest document, SODC have reduced that number of 156 to 115, which is 41 less, which I suspect is due to the approval of 40 houses at Wyvale Garden Centre, which happened in December 18, so it's after that cut-off date. So that's been docked, and maybe another, there are quite a few single infill sites as well. But now to bring you up to date, since the 115 was approved, we have Anderson House, which I believe has received permission, and there are 32 extra because they already had permission for 11, yeah, and they're proposing 43. So that's a net addition of 32. We've had a net addition at Highlands Farm because they're switching to rather small houses. There's an extra 28 there. And on the Smith Centre, they've upped their numbers as well. So there's an extra 42 there.
Well, the Smith Centre?
Yeah.
How many have you got down for there then?
Well, it was
in total.
I think it's 73, isn't it?
I thought it was somewhere near that total. What, you're saying another 42 on top of the 73?
No, on top of the ones that have already granted permission, which was, they had a conversion in for, wait a moment, they had an approval for 36,
yeah,
and they've increased it to 78. So that's a net increase of 42.
Yeah.
Then there's Brook House in Duke Street, which has approval for 10 apartments there. There's the Fairmile site, which has also received an additional 12. Now, if you add those up, that comes...
Yeah, we don't know about the Fairmile yet. There's an application gone in, but okay, carry on there, sorry.
I thought that had permission, the 12.
No. Well, the Fairmile site for 80?
Well, 12 in addition to what was allowed in the neighbourhood plan.
No, they haven't got permission yet.
Okay, well, scrub that 12 then. that takes us up to 114 in addition to be offset against the 115, which was the latest number. In addition to that, there are lots of small infill developments, 1, 2, 3 houses being placed in, which gives a total of 60, I think. So that gives us a total of, I think, 172, which is vastly in excess of the 115. So we've already exceeded the total required.
Yeah.
And going back to the minutes that I questioned, the other thing the minutes say is 115 to be delivered through the review of the neighbourhood plan. Well, that's 115 to be delivered by 2034, right?
But, yeah, but it will be 2035. But yeah, carry on.
Well, yeah, 2034. So the clear conclusion is that we don't need any new sites, that we've already exceeded the allocation by a considerable margin. And, well, I leave the committee to mull that over.
Could you do me a favour? Could you send me a copy of the email you've got from Ricardo with the figures that you quoted?
Yeah.
If you could do not now. When you get 5 minutes.
Yeah.
If you could do that, that'd be handy. And that's what I say. I think we need to get a figure written down in black and white because there's so many different figures being bandied around.
Well, yeah, there are. But on the other hand, if you look into it, you can see where they're coming from.
Yeah, I'm not arguing with you, David. I think you're correct. Yeah, Patrick.
Yeah, 2 things. One is it would be really good to have an understanding of the run rate, roughly how many PDRs a year, so that we can look forward, forecast just how many PDRs we may end up with when, you know, as other industrial buildings are converted to housing and so on, as more infill happens and as other sites maybe consolidate with higher densities. Because that's point 1, just good to know that. Point 2 is the inspector was quite scathing about our allocation, and if we shout about this, they may well up it. I think we are a victim of our own success in some ways, and that they might well say that they actually want the 15% on top of PDRs, and I think that is a big concern. Going forward, I feel we've got to be slightly cautious. Point 3 is with PDRs, we don't get any say in social, anything really, and we don't get SIL money either. Or sorry, yeah. So. I think as we go into the looking at sites, we have to bear in mind what our objective is for the town, whether we want to have some of these things, and whether the price to pay for that is having some new sites. So just three thoughts there.
Yeah, if I could just say that the future is obviously very speculative. As office buildings get converted, there are fewer and fewer left to become PDRs, similarly with infill sites. But I agree with your general point about moving the goalposts. But I'm sure it's written in the regulations as they stand at the moment that PDRs and infill sites do count.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I quite agree they count. No danger with that. The problem is we're at an awkward stage with the local plan, where if they come under pressure on the greenfield sites around Oxford, they may well come back out to the market towns for a larger allocation. It hasn't finished yet. You know, if this was all done and dusted, there'd be no problem, but it's not. I think we have to be aware of that.
Yeah, I agree with Patrick to a degree. At the moment, what's coming through from the examiner is quite favourable to Henley, but that's not to say that it won't change in the future. Hopefully it won't. The numbers on, I think if you go back over the period of the last 10 years, I think you may well find that with PDRs, infills and whatever, you know, it works out about 100 houses a year. There's quite a number of these take place. I'm sure if you went back March 2018, you would find, you know, there's a lot more houses being built
Yes.
other than the number given. But I don't know how we deal with. Well, you can't deal with it. We've been given a date, David, and that's it.
But we could ask whether certain sites that, including some of those I mentioned, are included in their deductions. I mean, they take off. What was it? They take off an allocation for those that have been completed since.
Yeah, see, that's the next problem, David. We're you know, going back to the neighbourhood plan that was agreed about 3 years ago. We've built nowhere near the number that we should be building, and who's to say that they will be built?
Well, I thought that will come up under your review of the sites, will it?
Well, no, because there's no point at this moment in time. You know, I can't read into the future, you know, which developer's going to build. As a prime example, you know, we know that Thames Farm is not building at the moment. We also know that Highlands Farm are not selling at the moment. We also know on the corner of Deanfield Avenue are not selling at the moment. So who's to say that these developers that have got planning permission will build out?
Well, no, but if there's no demand, there's no need for them.
Well, exactly, but that's not to say you won't get the figures come through showing that we need more houses. That's the problem. Anyway, anybody else wish to make any comments on that?
Well, just to say that demonstrates we need more affordable housing, doesn't it?
Well, I think we go on to that, Joan, as we get onto item 8, and this is what's coming up over and over again, is affordable houses. Yeah, we get onto that when Julian speaks, I think. Okay, let's move us. Thank you for that, David. Let's go on to item small 6, business and community engagement. Who would like to speak on that?
So 2 focus groups have now been held by Community First, and they will be holding 2 additional focus groups on climate change and housing, and they've come out of the interest in the first 2 and the issues that have been raised, so they want 2 additional groups to focus on that. So I'll send details around about them separately. They're pulling together a short report of the discussion points at those focus groups, and again I'll report those back to you.
Okay. Michelle. Yep. She's gone. Oh well.
Mute, Ken.
Sorry?
She's on mute.
Oh, there you are.
Sorry, I keep clicking on the wrong buttons. I attended the second Community First meeting. I know it was a Friday night, but the turnout wasn't very good at all. I mean, there was myself, there was Joan, and Paul Scrivens, who I believe is on Greener Henley, or the Climate Emergency Working Group. You
didn't have to name names, Michelle.
But
I apologise for missing it.
I'm just demonstrating that I was quite disappointed with the turnout. Yeah. I'm just wondering how we can just advertise that better to get more people to join in.
I think there were more names down there
yes.
that didn't appear on the evening, and I was one. I must apologise. Anybody else like to speak on that?
Yeah, I just wanted to come back and say Community First did quite a lot of like publicity for it. They did have a big extensive list that they went out to for stakeholders and community groups. We posted it on Twitter and Facebook, and we circulated it with the councillors, put it on the website. So as much as possible, us and Community First did did promote it. But if you can think of any other ways that we can get the word out, then definitely for this and moving forward with other events, that would be useful.
Did you say you had some notes on that, Jodie, from that meeting?
They're pulling them together. Community First are pulling them together at the moment, so
Okay.
I can provide them.
Okay, thank you.
When I get them, yeah.
Okay, fine.
Patrick wants to speak.
Sorry, Patrick.
Yeah, I wonder whether we can do a bit ourselves. If we have a list of appropriate community groups like the Henley Society, Greener Henley, and so on, that if they have mailing lists, that we can ask them to mail out and to get more interest. Because if you do it on a more personal basis, you're more chance of getting involvement, I think.
Okay. Okay, fine, thank you. Small 7 liaison with other parishes. Well, after the decision on Anderson House, I did send a few emails out to different parishes about neighbourhood plans, but no replies as such. Other than that, I don't think anything's taken place. Review on existing sites. Well, actually, I've got nothing else to give out to you than I normally do, other than what I've just said before, where things seem to be slowing down with the builders in Henley and also out into Harpston. And one can only imagine that there's either isn't the need or they're too expensive. It's as simple as that. So I don't know if anybody would like to make a comment on that. Rebecca.
Can I just make a comment on it? Is that I think that certainly for the second part of what we're looking at today, the proposed changes to the current planning system, I think the reasons why, in our response to that, the reasons why the builders aren't building would be an extremely good thing to put in our response, because there's a very interesting article on Conservative Home by the leader of Woking Council, and he makes the point that local authorities don't build houses, developers do, and you can offer as much planning permission as you like, but if the developer doesn't build, then you don't actually get any homes. And I think it would be very, very useful to be able to know that if we had some data on it.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else speak? No, I can't see anybody. Industrial land. Well, obviously this will hopefully come up when they do the presentations on from the 10 sites that are going to come forward in a couple of weeks' time. I could harp on about Anderson House again, where we've just lost about 600 square meters of commercial industrial land, which beggars belief when you have a economic development manager, the SODC, supporting it. I just can't get my head around it. I'm in the process of writing a letter to Adrian Duffield on the report that came forward from SODC, where there was so many reasons why that application should have been refused in the report. It was just beyond belief. And what made it even worse, there were a couple of councillors from towns that have got neighbourhood plans, and I'm amazed that they supported this as well. So yeah, other than that, nothing to report on industrial land. Yeah, Joan.
Could you just remind me which is Anderson House?
As you go into Newtown Industrial Estate.
Oh, that one, yeah, okay.
Yeah, you go down there, it's the last,
yeah.
the third block on the right-hand side on the corner there. The
know.
one with no parking.
Are there any grounds for appealing that decision?
Only unless you want to take it to the High Court and spend about 10 grand.
Oh, okay then.
Well, it's probably too late now anyway. They give they sign the planning permission off within a couple of days these days to stop people doing that. So the answer is probably no.
Amazing.
Exactly.
And I've got a question for you.
Yeah.
We got this 1 hectare that we're meant to be providing.
Yeah.
And at the moment we got industrial land disappearing like it's going out of style.
Mm.
How on earth are we going to find a hectare within the parish I can't see how we can do it.
Watch your space.
Okay.
Those additional sites that ACOM are looking at for the site assessment includes, well, one site for employment as part of a mixed-use scheme. So they're considering that for employment at the moment. So I can bring that back to the committee.
Yeah. Which one was that?
What was that? The Crass Nicholson one.
Oh, okay. All right. Item, yeah, that was site selection. Item 11, conservation area review and local list. Jodie, I've got you down for this.
Yeah, so the tender for the review of the conservation area has gone out, and I did send that round, which included the scope for that work. I've had a number of responses, which will be reviewed over the next couple of weeks. So I could come back to you on that with an update next time.
Thank you. Okay, item 12, climate emergency 2030. Patrick.
So I'm saying the same observations on this one, that I did want to be much further ahead, but things got in the way. And so the next step is really to go through the list of policies from those various, the plans and the local plan, and from Knightsbridge and from Henley. And if there's another one that anyone thinks would be worthwhile considering, I can add it onto the sheet. And then what we really need to do is to list out the policies that we really want to include based on that, and take that forward. I think it's not that difficult. It's just a lot of work, really.
You say there is a lot of work, or it's not a lot of work?
There is a lot of work. But what I have to say, that's one area with BOR and with the inspection where I'm heartened, because it's included DES 11, which is entirely devoted to climate change. So Jodie did a report on that, which I've got, and I think we will be working on that as a basis for justifying some of the policies that we will include in the plan.
You've got a good band of workers on that one.
Yeah. The only problem is they're kind of, it's what's called double counting, Ken.
Well, they are smiling. They must be enjoying doing it.
They haven't seen my spreadsheet yet.
Okay. Is that the one you sent today?
Yeah.
Oh dear. Okay, thank you all for that. Item 7, Oxygen Neighbourhood Plans Alliance. Patrick, that's another one for you. Unless,
yeah.
Have you got anything to say on that, Jodie?
Very, very briefly, just to say that we are going ahead with the event, and I can't remember the date of it now, but it's in either late October, early November. And we are, no, sorry, I think it's 10th of October. And obviously the topic is going to be all this legislation. That's going to be and the planning, the future planning, the white paper. So I think that would be interesting. So that's going on. And just to say that your email did elicit a response from OMPA, and they're quite concerned about the Anderson House as to just what's happening there. So hopefully that will be discussed at our next executive meeting.
That's great. Okay, thank you. Anybody else wish to speak on that one? No. Item 8, government planning guidance. I've got the changes to the current planning system, a white paper. And we've also got planning for the future, another one. Jodie, have you got anything to say before I call on Julian to speak?
I was just going to let Julian speak through his comments that he provided to us, and then I can just chip in when I'm required. I think that's easier, and then just get observations in general at this stage.
Okay. Right,
we're also having a meeting on Wednesday with the planning committee, So we'll get all the observations from the Neighbourhood Plan Committee today, and also from the Planning Committee, and I'll put together the response for that, taking into account all of your observations, and then I can then circulate that to the members of this committee and the rest of the councillors as well.
Okay, thank you. Right, okay, I'll call on Julian. Can I first thank you, Julian, for doing this comprehensive report on the on this white paper. And it's amazing. It's only on the first one. It's only kind of 40 pages, but I kept having to read the same paper, the same page twice to try and make it sense. I couldn't understand the maths for the life of me, and I'm pretty good at maths as well. So that was even more annoying. But yeah, 35 questions, which was quite interesting. So Julian, if I can pass over to you, do you want to go through your paper or just generalise?
I think just a very, very brief summary, Ken, and then really take questions from people. Otherwise, we could be here for quite a long time.
Whatever it takes.
Right. Well, look, I'm going to give an initial overview. Just a very quick couple of comments on Anderson House. Don't forget, we got that ransom strip between Anderson House and Mill Lane.
Shh, it's a secret.
All right. Just amongst these committee members. And if we do put in a hectare for commercial use in the neighbourhood plan, of course, there's nothing to stop somebody building it and then converting it under PDR to housing.
That's true.
Just to add to the fun. So yes, there were actually there were 4 documents. One is the use class change, and I raise this, although it's kind of after the event now, because we need to keep an eye on anything that does get use class changed into dwellings to add them to our numbers on the neighbourhood plan. Yeah. Oh, perhaps I should just say, of course, I've written this report, but the Henley Society haven't actually seen it officially yet, not until Thursday. To continue, and also if anybody does add stories to their existing property, that is also added to our dwelling count. So, and then there is another document on the call for evidence on contractual controls. I'm not sure that affects us, but it is a planning document which calls for comments by the end of October. So getting on to the meaty stuff, we changed to the existing planning law. You're quite right, Ken, there's so little, in fact, negligible amount on affordable housing. I mean, I mentioned it twice in what I thought were the key issues, but there really isn't something which addresses how do we build more affordable housing and then make it affordable, because most of it isn't affordable to the person on average income, let alone those with lower incomes. As we're finding out in YMCA, as we're trying to find out how do people move from there to housing, since they're all single individuals and end up on the bottom of the SODC housing list, which I think you said was how long? 4,000 people?
Oh, that was 2 years ago.
Right.
Yeah.
Still substantial.
Very substantial. So the real immediate concern is this wonderful algorithm, referred to as the mutant algorithm by some. And I've seen these numbers from Lichfields, and I did have a conversation with Ricardo, because the Lichfields numbers I couldn't quite relate to the numbers being bandied about in emerging local plans, and I'm still not clear. But the numbers there are rather lower than in our emerging local plan. However, having said that, I think that the algorithm will be ignored when it suits the government. And if local plans have higher numbers, they'll just say, thank you very much, and sign it off. Just to make that comment in terms of how does that affect the neighbourhood plan. The other issues, I don't think affect neighbourhood plans directly, this 30% discount for first homes, for which the developers are going to be funding. I can see that being welcomed with open arms. SMEs, to encourage SME builders, raising the threshold from 10 to 40 before they're required to provide affordable homes, another reduction in affordable homes, and the extension of permission in principle, which I think they had anyway once it was in a local plan and a neighbourhood plan. But if, apart from, as I say, it doesn't address what I think are the key issues, which we've really touched on, which is actions to get these 1 million dwellings already given permission, build them in the next 5 years. The 266,000 whose planning permission has expired, and that was in 5 years, that would be another 50, 60,000 a year. That's a significant number. And according to Shelter, 280,000 granted permission between 2011 and 2019. So we got a lot of paperwork. As you say, as our neighbour John Halsall has said, we can put whatever number we like in the plan, but the developers who build, like Thames Farm, then there is nothing in this proposal to force them. Like, well, there's nothing in it, like compulsory purchase of land, and giving local authorities the ability to build stuff. Well, that would be very controversial. That's on the current one. Do you want to pause there before I go on to the future of planning?
Yeah, let's just do that one first. I hope everybody's read this document. Does anyone, you've covered a lot of the things I was going to mention about the affordable and the, you know, you're going to have 18 months with, you can build 50 houses and put no affordable. And I just can't believe what I've read or tried to read. It literally, it doesn't make any sense. And it's a pity there's not a name on the document who wrote it. And I'd like to know what his background, or he or she's background was that's written that document, because there's so much wrong when you look at the questions. You could write for days and explain what's wrong with the document, but the question is, will anybody take any notice of us? And I think there lies the bigger the problem.
I'll come back to that Ken, when we do the future of planning. But
okay. Yeah, Jodie, would you like to make any comment on Julian's, what he said?
Yeah, I just wanted to highlight that this could have a big impact straight away, because this could come into force from October the 2nd. It's very different from the other consultation documents. It might not necessarily have an impact on Henley, but it could have a big impact on other local authorities in terms of an increase in housing numbers. And developers and landowners could put an application in straight away. And as in terms of 5-year land supply, in most cases, these could be one that could have a huge impact on how many homes are built in the near future. So this is an important document to respond to.
Okay, who would like to speak on it? Patrick.
So we're talking now just about we're not talking about the main consultation, are we? We're talking about the statutory instruments. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think there's a few things that are really going to hit us. One is the A's and B's, where interchangeable use, where we can expect offices to convert to restaurants or whatever, and vice versa. That any shop can virtually change its use, so you could have a butcher could become a cafe without planning permission. There's no longer any control over that. So that's A1, A2, A3 and B1 are now Class E. So they're completely interchangeable and we have no control over that for the future. That's one concern that I think will affect the look of Henley. And the other one is the permitted development rights. And I think that we're talking about housing stock from 1948 to 1980, is it, Julian? Yeah.
Yeah,
I think it was
19.
89. I must have, I can't remember.
But anyway, over it's it's not immediate houses that have immediately been built, but it's houses that were built basically post-war, and they can go up. A two-story house can go up 2 stories. And that there are some constraints, and a bungalow can go up 1 story. Not that ignores the roof, so they can actually go up into the roof as well. So potentially you could end up with a 3-story house out of a bungalow. And you know, if you're looking around Elizabeth Road and around Blandy Road and all over the estates that were built in the 70s, they're all potentially going to could be densified with these additional stories. And there's not much we can do about it because the planning permission is implicit. That means that from the 1st of this month, they've got planning permission for it. You just put in your details. So there is that catch-all that this is only talking about outline planning permission. That then they'd have to submit the detailed planning permission, and then they'd have to go through the whole process. But essentially, that first hurdle is down, and I think that's something that's very significant. And also, they've created additional classes for change of use, and so I think that it just means that we won't get a chance to object to a change of use. The outline planning permission of certain changes of use, like Anton House, will be automatically granted. And then it's a matter then for them to put in the detail. And it's only at that stage where the town, the council and the district can actually start to object is to the detail. There's not much more we can do. And I think that those are really worrying in terms of the shape and look of Henley, what it could mean for our community and our housing stock and the look of the town.
Ken,
Who was that? Hold on just a second. Jodie first, and then whoever's spoken there. So Jodie first.
I just wanted to make clear there that Patrick's comments were to do with the changes to the town and country planning use class order, and not the changes to the current planning system. But they're useful comments. Thank you, Patrick.
Okay. So who was that? Was that you, David, shouted out or called out? Yeah, go on, David.
Well, you might have the answer to this question, but I wonder how many houses built in that category that Patrick mentioned, where the foundations are sufficiently strong to take 2 extra stories. Aren't they going to be limited by building regulations here?
Well, my answer to that was whenever building regs came in, and I couldn't tell you when that happened, but I had a place in Grays Road, which I had to dig all the foundations out in the end because they just weren't strong enough to take the what I was proposing to build. So yeah, you're probably right. Anything probably going back before probably 1950ish, you may have problems with the foundations. I'm going to go to Patrick and then to Joan.
Just to clarify that one, you're allowed to demolish the house. Just adding stories doesn't mean that you've got to add them on top of what's there. The permission is there. You can actually demolish it and start again.
Oh, okay.
Well, you could do that anyway, Patrick. You can give 24 hours notice now to demolish a house.
Yes.
Yeah. Joan.
Well, just to say that the fact that the foundations are inadequate for a bungalow or for a second story doesn't mean to say that they cannot be reinforced. That's exactly what my daughter did. They had a bungalow, reinforce the foundations and take it to the house. So it can be done.
Yeah, true. Anybody else like to speak? No. Okay. You realise this is all going to go to planning on Wednesday, Michelle? Yeah. Okay. Right. The other one, Julian, the planning for the future, which to me, if I didn't know any better, this is almost a document as if there's a general election coming up. You read it.
It's certainly good on ideas, rather short on people who implement it, to say the least. Just a couple of comments from that conversation. Yes, there have been classic cases in Middle East Asia of people adding a couple of stories and the building collapsing. Let's hope we don't have any of those. And the current planning, I think Jodie mentioned she thought it might come into law on the 2nd of October. Now, I don't know the answer to that question, whether it might come into law. The consultation finishes on the 1st, and there is such a lot of, how can I say, comments from Conservative MPs and groups that I think it might require some further, how can I say, negotiation before it comes before Parliament. But
hopefully,
we will see. So the future planning, yeah, I've written quite a lot on it, 74 pages. I think I had to read it through twice before I could actually start. My original document was rather longer. Really, I just want to highlight two key areas. One is the neighbourhood plans are mentioned in paragraph 19. One could be forgiven that they were a kind of, oh dear, we've forgotten about that, we better pop them in somewhere.
Yeah.
So there is more a kind of, oh, what shall we do with neighbourhood plans, as opposed to here's what we're going to do with neighbourhood plans. Of course, with local plans being thrown up in the air, it could be quite difficult to comment on that. The SIL still at 25%. Although that might get adjusted down because SIL is proposed will incorporate 106s, and therefore I'm sure there'll be some pressure to reduce the 25%, although there is a proposal that that can be used to build affordable housing. The only query, I think, on Henry will be finding somewhere to put them, as opposed to having perhaps funding to build them. And I know, Ken, you and I have had that conversation before, or certainly you and colleagues have had conversations about if we did build affordable housing, where would we put them?
Yeah.
There is so much else to it, but again, already mentioned, a complete lack of comment on affordable housing. They are attempting to close one of the loopholes on SIL, on PDRs, that in future PDRs will be required to pay SIL. That's good news. And really everything else, I'm going to refer you to the report, but also some of the URLs. There's a couple on a group called Planerax, who are actually a bunch of planning QCs. So I think they are quite worthwhile, a quick browse. A bunch of people who've got lots of experience probably know what they're talking about. Don't have to agree with them, of course, but at least they'll give you a view. And I just, before I forget, thank Patrick for working together, certainly in the early days as we knocked this document together. Anybody else want to say anything about it?
Well, Jodie will for a start, and then all I was going to say, if it ain't broken, why fix it? But yeah, there we go. Jodie.
Yeah, thank you for those comments, Julian. I was just going to refer back to those. I had a couple of observations. The white paper doesn't go into any detail, as Julian stated, in terms of any reforms or the shape of any future neighbourhood planning documents. It does suggest that the scope of those neighbourhood plans would be substantially reduced, similar to any new local plans. Without any details, it's difficult to say what it would look like, but neighbourhood plans would be able to include detailed design guidance and codes to shape development. It looks like neighbourhood plans may not be able to allocate specific sites for development, and it's unclear if they would be able to categorise land as is suggested for growth, renewal and protection, and this might be solely down to the local plan. It also looks like neighbourhood plans would not be able to include specific development management policies, and a large area of constraints and issues would not be able to be picked up at that stage. Those are the policies that planning officers would take into account. I've also got big concerns about the proposed public engagement that it's suggesting. At the moment, you obviously get an opportunity when a local plan is being examined, and also a neighbourhood plan, and then also at the point of an application coming in. This is suggesting that that would be completely just reliant on engagement at the time of putting the local plan in place. I think as members of the public, you would definitely, well, struggle to comment or want to get engaged at that point without actual proposals being on the board. I know people are interested when the application's in place, because you can see plans, you know exactly what the proposals are. At such a high level stage of the process, you're really going to struggle to get people involved. So that was the key main points that I just wanted to cover.
Okay. Kester and then Joan.
Doesn't what Jodie's just said reinforce the clear opinion that these documents are more akin to Comrade Lukashenko than to a democratic society, and that the various statements about consulting and taking advice and so on are just window dressing of no significance at all. It's totally central control, which is surely out of character and keeping with our parliamentary history. I'm appalled by the general impression that one gets.
I agree.
Yeah, Joan.
My response when I read it first time was very similar when I read Julian's much more detailed response, which actually reinforced many of the things that I decided I thought as well. I think the claims it makes we can hardly argue with, and the simplification of the planning process, we must applaud that. The idea of democracy and transparency and more online, all these are very things which I don't think that we would argue with. However, as has been pointed out, there's a great deal of contradiction there. Supposedly more transparent, more democratic, and yet so much when you look at it is actually anti-democratic. There's going to be less, as you said, community engagement and less opportunities for local decisions. And then on specific things, I think there's a kind of a double whammy in that the reduction of the social housing from 40% to 10%, or rather the number of a site from 10 to 40 that doesn't have to have a percentage of social housing on, and the changes to the SIL, whereby the SIL can now be used for social housing. I think that's going to be a double whammy against getting more social housing there. I think I agree with what you said about that there's nothing to make the developers actually build. There doesn't seem to be anything which is going to make them not just sit on the land and not build on them. I think that there's really there's nothing in there to actually positively improve the numbers of social and affordable housing. And I think the whole thing is very short on detail. A lot of it is pie in the sky, especially the future stuff.
I think it's what you call window dressing, John.
Yeah, apple pie and motherhood, yeah.
Patrick.
I think looking at the way they're talking, what we're meant to do as a neighbourhood, as a community, is influence the local plan. So my thought is probably we'll get one shot at the beginning when the local authority, whether that's SODC or whether it's OCC or what it is, put together their plan for the area. We get one shot to present evidence and to try and persuade them where growth areas should be, where renewal areas should be, and where conservation or preservation should be, and also to do with any policies. I think that's the worry, is that once that's been put in place, then there's no feedback. It's an open-ended system. The plan gets written and then the developers make hay with it, really. And there's very little that we can then do. There's very little control once that's happened. And I think that's basically what they're looking for. I think one could be cynical. The fact that Savills was one of the main consultants on the drafting of this is indicative of, you know, where's the money lying, you know, and yeah, and that says it all.
Did make a note of that.
Yeah, it's very sad. I mean, there are some things that we should pick up, things that in it that basically we've got to be very wary of, and we should comment on. But it's very short on detail. It's very long on fluff, and so it's very hard to actually get a concrete view on this. And it may well be that following this meeting and following the planning meeting, we actually have to then tear the thing to pieces and try and get some answers, you know, go through it, whereas Julian would be happy to keep in harness and actually get some suggested answers to the questions that are being asked, so that we can really optimize the pressure we bring to bear.
And we're going to have to do that fairly quick, though, Patrick.
Yes. Yeah.
Got a few more comments, Ken, when you're...
Yeah, go for it. Yeah. Hold on, let me just speak to... Let's just have Rebecca first, and I'll come back to you, Julian.
All right.
Rebecca.
I think that the most important thing is that we, first of all, respond to the changes to the current planning system, simply because we have less time for that. And that's something that doesn't need to go to Parliament for debate. The Minister could just sign that straight into law. And actually, the changes that could bring about could be very fundamental. I think in the building for the future, planning for the future, I mean, it has got several stages to go through yet from a parliamentary point of view, so there's more time, and we also have another month to be able to have a response to that. I mean, I agree with Patrick. I mean, clearly the fight is going to be over which parts are designated for development and which parts are designated for protection, and that's going to be one big almighty fight right at the beginning.
I think she may have frozen. Just a sec. I think she's frozen there. Okay, Julie, we go to you, then back to Kester.
In the eye of the beholder.
Hold on. So, Rebecca, can I just stop you?
A bit of fluff, really.
Rebecca.
I do feel that in the changes to the current planning system, that the first paragraph actually is one of the most extraordinary paragraphs I think I have read to a paper that's arguing for change. Because what it says is that the current system they've got is a resounding success. They've delivered over 1.5 million new homes since 2010, including over 241,000 last year alone, the highest level for 30 years. So what it tells us is actually what's happening already, with a few tweaks, will deliver the number of houses that they want to plan for. And I think it's extraordinary that they can use a statement like that with what the figures are actually showing us to argue that huge changes are needed. What is needed is for the changes they've already got to be bedded down.
Yeah, I think you've hit the nail on the head there. Julie, and then I'll go to Kester.
In fact, one of the points I was going to make, Ken, was that in fact, if you add the 241,000 to the 266,000 divided by 5, you're over 290,000 a year. What's the problem? As you said earlier on, in fact, the things that could be fixed, which would significantly increase the number of dwellings being built each year, are not addressed in any of these papers at all. The design guides, are they suggesting that parish councils can create design guides?
And streets.
And streets, this is just beyond surely the competence of parish councils. And we are very well placed in Henley Town Council with such a large and competent bunch of officers. This 30-month suggestion to produce local plans, it says increase democracy, transparency, but reduce it from 7 years to 30 months. I found that a bit, well, questionable. It is a lot of blue sky thinking, very, very short on details. But I do agree with Rebecca that it is the changes to the current system, which in fact, I have to read it again, but now, after Rebecca's comment and Jodie's comment, something about it could be introduced with a written ministerial statement. I'll have to check the document on that again. If that is the case, Jodie is quite right. It could come into law on the 2nd of October if that proves to be right. So the area would probably want to focus on responding to in the short term. And we're in very good company because of the number of large societies, Civic Voice, CPRE, and others on their views on this document.
Okay, thank you for that. Kester, then Patrick.
In all this massive detail, the one thing that seems to me to be primarily objectionable is the idea of central government using some undefined algorithm, dividing the country into 3 bits for growth and protection and the middle one. Surely we must protest against that. No central system can do as well as local democracy on planning matters. I mean, I noticed that even some Henley councillors aren't all that strong on Hertfordshire, and I'm sure that the reverse is true as well.
Oh, I can't believe that.
But, I mean, that's taking things to a ridiculous extreme. But for a central government to say, to choose between bits of counties, I just think is mad. It's centralization to an extent that we haven't seen in this country before. And just a simple protest that seems to me about as much as we can hope to achieve.
Okay. Thank you. Patrick and then Jackie.
Those are 2 things just to address. Kester, you only need to look at who's in the cabinet office to see.
Yes.
And I think the more you object or protest, the more it will justify the attitude that they've taken to them. They are trying to cut through local democracy because local democracy is seen as getting in the way. It's not. We mentioned earlier on in the meeting about how the housing numbers didn't seem to stack up with the algorithm, and that's because the numbers for South Oxfordshire are the tail end of the growth deal, and we're getting 30,000 houses to build in South Oxfordshire instead of the 12 or 15 maximum, 14 I think it is, that we would get under the algorithm. So even there they're swinging the lead, and I think that this will just carry on, that they will identify places like the area around Culham or the aerodrome out towards the M40 as growth areas, and then plonk houses down on them. They've still got, bear in mind, we've still got the Oxford-Cambridge arc, which will mean 1 million houses between South Oxfordshire and Cambridgeshire, which means that Oxfordshire itself will take at least another 200,000. So they've got to put them somewhere, because they can't put them right next to Oxford. They're going to plonk them down in these growth areas. So basically what they're doing is priming us ready for basically the rape of the countryside. They're going to essentially plop down these developments, the sort of Milton Keynes's all over the southeast. And it's nothing to do with levelling up. It's nothing to do with economic necessity. It's nothing to do with housing needs. It's about building 300,000 homes a year and building them where builders are prepared, or developers are prepared to develop them, which is in the southeast. I'm afraid, that's basically what we're confronted with.
Yes.
Okay. I'm going to take Jack, and I'm probably going to wind this up now. I think it's been a really good debate on the issues, and obviously thanks to Julian for his papers. So I'll just take Jackie.
Thank you. I just wanted to say thank you as well for all the work from Julian and Patrick on it, and sorry that it's not been possible for me this last week to read properly and do it justice, but going on the comments so far that I'm in agreement with, and also looking in conjunction with the changes coming to local government from the devolution paper potentially. It has a feeling that what we can do is being reduced, and a lot of it will come, you know, from central government. I'm just wanting to ask the question in amongst this: what is the possibility of council investment in housing for social rent?
Can I come in there, Ken?
Yeah, I'm going to ask you to sum up in a minute anyway, Julian.
Okay.
Yeah. Does any, well, it's all a question of money and where you can get money from, Jackie. But Patrick, just a quick answer to that if you have one.
Yeah, there's actually a very nasty little sentence in there somewhere, I think about page 30, which says that they're actually thinking of using public land to give to SMEs, developers, actually small to medium developers, and for self-build. So it's actually going the other way. The chances are they're going to actually compulsory purchase or basically acquire the land. It's a nasty little sentence that crept in there, but it's in there.
Thank you. Or not.
Right,
yeah, I know.
Julian, do you want to sum up on what you've heard and what you've said? And are you available for planning on Wednesday, or you're not?
I'm just waiting actually for feedback from Michelle and Jodie.
Okay, I'll leave them to respond then. Do you want to just sum up on what you've said and what you've heard today?
I'm just going to respond to Jackie's comments initially on there is a suggestion that SIL could be used for providing affordable housing in the future. But public land, as a centre of public lands, we have to be very careful they don't appropriate some of our public land, like 40-acre fields. So we need to be rather sharp on that one. But really, to summarise, is I think the priority needs to be on the changes to the current system to make our views clear on that, especially on the mutant algorithm, and then to really get into the future of planning. What's really challenging to me is it doesn't actually address the issue. The government wants to build 300,000 dwellings a year. In essence, they are there if all the planning permissions are built. So what's this blue sky thinking to rip up an existing system, which I'm sure has got its problems, and sure we'd like a 21st century interactive system rather than a document-based system, but that doesn't require ripping up the entire planning system. Oh, and by the way, it'll be planning officers making decisions. If it's in the growth area, it'll be planning officers making decisions. There'll be no more district council planning committee to judge whether something is right for the district or not. So I think to focus on the changes and then follow up on that on the future of planning, and trying and finding some form of words to respond to them, and perhaps lobby our MP on our behalf.
I'll leave that to you, Julian.
I just really want
you can do that if you want.
To Jeff and David, who for whom this report was prepared, who haven't seen it yet until Thursday afternoon. But time is not on our side.
Okay. Well, thanks so much, Julian. Appreciate that. Michelle.
Yeah, I'd just like to pick up on that point of lobbying our MP. I mean, that definitely needs to happen. And I'm just wondering, as a group, and as a planning committee as well, how we should go about that, because that definitely needs to happen, and it needs to happen up and down the country as well, not just in Oxfordshire, but up and down the country.
Okay. But I think actually is an excellent debate. Lots of issues came up. I think the best one of the day had to come from you, Rebecca, was as you say, the introduction, which told us everything why we didn't need to do anything. So I think we should consider that in any response that we make to central government. I think that's an absolute must. Right, thank you very much for that, Julian. You can stay for the next item if you wish. It's entirely up to you. Next steps. Okay, brilliant. All I would say, if anybody has any items that they would like to go to the Town Council Planning Committee on Wednesday night, if you could send them to Jodie and copy them into Michelle, if you could do that for me, please. Yeah, okay. And if anybody wants to attend the meeting, so that's entirely up to you. Yeah. Okay, excellent. Well done. Thank you very much. And thank you, Julian, for that, all the time you spent on it. Right, item 9 was next steps. Jodie?
So yeah, just to continue to make progress on the topic papers, I need to get going with the housing one, so it's not just you guys, it's me as well. Also those focus groups that are going to be, there's 2 on housing and climate emergency, I'll send those details around to you. Yeah, there's quite a lot going on, but the topic paper is probably the most important.
Yeah, Ricardo phoned me last week and he said we definitely need to do a paper on housing needs. That's mainly come out of the from the fellow Bohr again. We definitely need to put something forward on there. Patrick.
Just on the 3 sessions we've got for the presentations, what time of day? What's the time that they're going to be? You know, when do they start and finish?
You can answer that, Jodie.
Let me just double check. I've just had 2 weeks on holiday.
I think it starts at 6:30.
Is it 6:30? Yeah.
We've been given. We were talking earlier. We've been given an hour for each one. But what I've suggested is that if an hour is too long, that we get in touch with each developer, landowner, whatever, and to make sure that they are ready. If we were, say, to finish the first one, instead of finishing at 7:30, it was to finish at, say, 20 past or 10 past 7. We could then, within 5 minutes, go on to the next one, rather than just having us waiting around for 20 minutes. So they're due for 6:30 on the hour, completing at 9:30.
And I'll circulate the meeting details for you, so you can.
Lovely.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yep. Right, okay, next meeting, we've suggested the 26th of October. That'll give us some breathing space after the presentations. Yeah, Michelle.
Is that the half-term holiday?
Oh, I couldn't tell you, I haven't got any kids any longer. They've all emigrated.
Okay, I think it is, so I may not be there, but
yeah.
I'll try.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Is that, other than that, everybody else, 26th of October.
Okay.
Yep. Don't have any children in the meantime. Right, item.
What about grandkids? Who's got grandkids?
Yep. Oh, they've all gone. Right, item 11 is exclusion of the press and the public. To consider that the public and the press be excluded from the remainder of the meeting in accordance with the Public Bodies Admission to Meetings Act 1960, as publicity would be prejudicial to the public interest by reason of the confidential nature of the business. Are we all in favour of that? Yep, okay. Yep. So we're going into confidential session. We're not online, Kath, are we?
Yeah, we're recording still.
I think the sun's in Kath's eyes at the moment.